D. Prayer includes supplications, requests for my personal needs.
This is a predominant thinking, is that if we don't make a choice to do otherwise, we tend to look at all the things we do in our lives daily, what we can handle, and then what we can't handle, God will take care of that. But as long as I can look at what I can handle, this is fine until you get something that, you fall in the mud, face down, and then all of a sudden you realize that, God, where are you? And He's way back down the road. And, well, Lord, why aren't you here to help me? Because you're on the wrong road. If you would have asked me back then, I would have told you you're going down a rabbit trail. But this is what happened to the Israelites in Canaan. Everybody knows the story of Jericho. Israelites went into Canaan, and God said, I'll give you victory. I'll give you every place you set your foot on, I'll give it to you. It's like having it written on a card. Oh, I'll print this out, fold it up, and stick it in my pocket. This is my guarantee. They defeated Jericho, and everything seemed peachy keen. And they thought, this is a cakewalk. Oh man, this is great. Wow, this is how it works. God is going to give us victory. And so this next little town over here, Ai, they said, just send a few guys. It's small. God's going to give us victory. So they sent a small group. I think it was 36 guys got killed, and they got their rear ends kicked. What is going on here? What happened to God's promises? And they were beside themselves. Joshua was beside himself. Joshua wanted to say, obviously this doesn't work. God's promises don't work. Let's get out of here. Let's go back out of Canaan where we won't have these battles. God said, let's get something straight here. I will give you victory as long as we're in fellowship. As long as we're abiding, my promises of victory, you can count on them. But when we're out of fellowship, you cannot count on my promises. See, those promises are conditional, and they're conditional on abiding. Now, God's promises to us are just like promises that the Israelites received, but we can only count on God's promises of victory in our daily lives when we are abiding. And that's why abiding is so critical. Abiding is not optional.
E. Prayer. Battle in the secret place. When you pray, go into your room, and when you have shut your door, pray to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly. Matthew 6:6.
This is, of course, by Oswald Chambers. This is one of the daily devotions. A couple weeks ago that it was mentioned that one way to deal with this issue is, as we're in our time of prayer, have a blank piece of paper with us. As we are in our prayer time, when you have wandering thoughts and things that you've got to do right now, write them down. That way you'll have a visual reminder. You can write it down, and then it's done with. You know in your mind, I'm not going to forget it. I can deal with it later. One of the points that he brings out is to reference everything to God. Don't be of the mindset that you just consult with God when you have a problem, but rather consult with God on a regular basis. Then when you have a problem, you're not going to go into shock. There's a physical principle. A lot of people have back problems. One of the reasons for back problems is that on occasion we have to strain our backs, and guess what? Our backs were not prepared beforehand. You don't go for 6 months with no exercise or preparation and then come up one day and say, I have to do something today that's going to strain my back. I better exercise. And so you spend an hour or two exercise, and then you go do it, you go and strain your back. What's the problem? You haven't been preparing way long before then, you have not been preparing over a length of time your back, so your back is not prepared. The same thing happens to us spiritually. We can kind of have the mental, spiritual attitude, oh, I don't really need to be cast on the Lord today because things are going pretty good. And that can go on and on and on and on and on. And then you, all of a sudden, there's a crisis, and you fall apart. Well, this is what he's talking about right here. We need to exercise spiritually, even though we don't feel like we're going to be called upon for a spiritual crisis, so that when we do face crisis, that we're prepared.
F. Prayer includes intercession, requests for the needs of others.
You know, this last page, we're reminded that prayer includes adoration, thanksgiving, praise, confession, reconciliation, forgiveness, supplications, requests for personal needs, requests for the needs of others, intercession, and we ought to just reflect upon that on a frequent basis. For one thing, prayer is just not saying, God, I need this, I need that. Here's my need list. There's other things that God wants us to be concerned with beyond just our, gimme, gimme, gimme. That's a childish thought, isn't it?
G. Prayer is continual, anytime, but you should also include special times set apart. It pleases God when we seek His direction for appropriate times and places.
It's important on the one hand, be in constant communication with God. It's important on the other hand to not have it become mechanical. Any two people, husband and wife or friends, that are spending time together, generally if they're in fellowship, there's a conversation going on, but it's not a conversation of 10 times an hour or 100 times a day, but it's a conversation where there'll be concentrated conversation, and then there'll be times when you don't say anything, but you're just aware of the other. God wants us to be aware of Him continually, and He wants us to be continually attentive to His voice. Continually attentive. Lord, maybe you're not speaking to me right now, but I want to be continually aware that at any moment you are free to speak to me. As we go through the day and interact with people, God may, if we're open to Him, say, pray about this person, pray for this person, pray about this, pray about that, whatever. The key is to let God control or manage our conversation. Our part is to be open to Him all the time. His part is to manage the conversation.
I am continually with you. You have taken hold of my right hand. With your counsel you will guide me, and afterward receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And besides you I desire nothing on earth. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Psalm 73, 23 through 26.
There's a whole lot there, isn't there? That is so powerful. And I think that's where God is moving us towards. How many of us can say that from our heart? We should each ask God to make that a reality to us. I mean, that really should be the cry of our heart, shouldn't it? It shouldn't be forced. It shouldn't be mechanical. That should be really the sense of our heart. That's where God's moving us to.